San Francisco, it's Rex Broadcasting Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on! Get it on!
How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for 2 hours talking pro wrestling as we do every Sunday night here on Sports Byline USA with Wrestling Observer Live. We've got Bryan Alvarez, of course, here for 2 hours, and we're going to talk a little bit about year in review, week in review, and just all the latest pro wrestling news, as well as taking your phone calls at 1-800-878-PLAY. And we have one line open, as well as a bunch of lines full, so you can hop aboard that. In about 15 minutes, we'll be joined by Mike TENAY, the TV announcer for NWA TENAY. You can talk to him about that promotion, or you can pretty much talk to him about anything going on in pro wrestling, because he's a pretty smart guy, actually. He's the smartest of people in the business. He's the smartest guy that I know who is sane. But I won't say he's the smartest guy that I know. But is that fair?
I would say so.
But anyway, I think I just called some people insane, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Oh, well, that's the truth. Anyway, Bryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
How's Christmas?
It was good. It was fun.
How's Miss Rent-to-Own?
Miss Rent-to-Own is really hot still. I haven't seen her since that day, but I'm making the assumption.
Oh, okay. So how long before your time is up on that one?
Well, I don't know. I think that there's some plans down the line where I'll get a partner, and when that happens, she'll be gone. But if that's the case, I may have to derail this partner's progress in returning to the ring. That would be a tragedy to lose Miss Rent-to-Own.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that's on Portland Wrestling, which starts a week. My God, this comes Saturday night, right?
Yeah, Saturday night 11.
Saturday night 11 on the WB in Portland, Oregon. For those of you in that market, or who can get that or want to get videos, you should actually find out how to get videos of that one.
Yeah, I'll try and find out. I don't know what they're going to be doing about that yet, so I'll send an email over, and hopefully next week on the show I'll say something.
Let's see. There is Raw and SmackDown and wrestling. Hunter's starting back on Thursday, and I'm really, I shouldn't say surprised. I'm not surprised, but I think it's a bad move. Because he's not ready, and it's like he's showing guts. And, he's got guts. He worked how many minutes on that leg? Was it 30 minutes the other night?
Yeah.
So more than 30. So, but I just think that sometimes if the word is guts or your machismo or something gets in your way, and it's sometimes when you're hurt, you got to rest.
Yeah, and I think that. He's coming off one quad injury, and, how long did that put him on the shelf? And this one isn't as bad, but if I'd torn a quad off the bone, and then I'd injured my other quad, I would wait a long, long time before coming back on that other one. And it's not like shows are going to be drawn 3,000 without him and 5,000 with him. It's not going to make any difference.
Yep. Anyway, we're going to head to a break right now. We're going to come back with more right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and we're going to be here for a little over an hour and 45 more minutes talking pro wrestling tonight, as we do every Sunday night from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Time on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Bryan, I just read your newsletter yesterday, the day before yesterday, actually, and I saw that you, January 12th on HBO, there's going to be a movie on 2 years or so in the life of Mark Kerr, 1999 and 2000, and that's a movie that everybody got to see.
Yeah. In fact, it's a story about Mark Kerr and Mark Coleman, and when you really watch the movie, it almost should have been made about Mark Coleman, but I think they started on Kerr, and I don't want to ruin the film for anybody, but Kerr had a worse time, basically, than Mark Coleman over the course of the 2 years, and Coleman's story was really the story about coming from behind and really making something of your life, and Kerr's story was sort of the exact opposite. So I did like how they focused on both guys, and Coleman came out of it looking like a really cool guy, and you'll watch the movie and probably have many different things to think about Mark Kerr and his family.
Yeah, we can probably talk. I'm sure we'll end up talking about it after that thing airs. But I would, definitely go out of your way to see that one.
Yeah, very good movie for fight fans and for wrestling fans, because they're there are things in Mark Kerr's life that a lot of wrestlers go through, and if you want to know what it's like, watch the movie.
Yeah. Okay. Chan the Giant Norcha against Hidalgo Suda late tomorrow night, early Tuesday. Who's going to win?
I know who's going to lose. It's the fans. That's all I know, and that's all I care.
Let's see. You've already said that we both agree on Mirko Cro Cop.
Did you see the odds for Bob Sapp, by the way?
No, I haven't looked at the odds for the fights at all. What is it,
odds for Bob Sapp were minus 800.
That's about what they should be.
That's incredible.
Well, he's not going to lose.
Oh, well, I've just learned that anything can happen in a fight. I don't expect him to in 100 years.
You're right. Anything
can happen.
Okay, but you've got a guy who's only lost once against a guy who's never won.
Yeah.
But then again, anything can happen if you're sloppy in a fight.
Yeah, and the guy who never won can take a real beating. And there's always a possibility that he can take a beating for so long that Bob Sapp gets worn out. And I'm sure Takayama at least knows what a rear naked choke is, so anything can happen.
Yeah, but I just think the guy's going to take a horrible beating.
Oh, he will.
Yeah, it's not going to be a pretty sight. I don't think it's going to go very long either. But I think it will probably do. I think it's going to be the second highest rating of the year behind the December 7th show.
The Bob Sapp Hoost fight?
Hoost fight, yeah, it ain't going to beat that. Not on New Year's Eve, not against the red and white special, which is like this. That's like the Super Bowl in Japan, so it can't beat that. But I think it's going to do a monster number. WWE, Jim Ross, Oklahoma City, 2 days before Christmas. What do you think of all that? What do you think of that segment?
I really liked that segment, actually.
So did I.
I thought it was like the right guy in the right place on the right night. Everything that could go right did, and I really had no problem with it. I mean, it was a non-wrestler in there beating two wrestlers that had been on a 8-week winning streak or whatever, but I think everything worked out perfectly, and it was a real good segment. I really liked that show. I don't know if it was because it was a holiday show or what it was, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought Raw was good. I thought SmackDown was good. So, pretty good week of WWE programming.
And Galavision apparently was really great as well, so I'm sure some of you out there have seen that, and if not, get a tape.
And New Japan was great.
Yeah.
I mean, who would ever believed it? This was a good week for wrestling. I didn't see that much bad stuff. Let me think. I saw the 0-1 pay-per-view. That was great, too.
Yep. I saw Reversal. That was great.
Reversal's great, yeah. Okay, well, we've seen nothing bad. So, and tomorrow night is going to be the best of Raw for 2000, so it's... why do I think... I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some really good stuff on that show, but why do I think that their idea of the best stuff is going to get me really annoyed by the end of the show?
I am really interested in whether they'll show the Katie Vick stuff.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
I was not going to watch the show because it was best of, but then I decided, you know what? This could be maybe the most entertaining Raw of the year. Not for what's shown. Well, actually, for what is shown, to be perfectly honest.
You know the thing, like when over Christmas I was over some friend's house and they showed me the Raw magazine with the 100 greatest moments of Raw, and so many of those moments. I mean, I remembered like most of them, and some of them were like so horrible. You know, like Jerry Lawler with Tiny Tim and Jerry Lawler with William Shatner, and some things like that. And it's just like it made me realize that like they don't know the difference between like a good skit and a bad skit. Which is
maybe it should have been most memorable, because then even something bad could be listed. But to call something the greatest moment that was Jerry Lawler and Tiny Tim,
brutal.
Stretching it.
Yeah. We will start with Jonathan in Savannah, Georgia. Jonathan, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Doing really good.
I had two questions for you, Dave and Brian. One of them is like a two-parter kind of question. I want to know if you know or have heard of anybody that is going to be cut in the near future from WWE.
I don't know of anybody who's going to be cut. I mean, you could tell some guys, like Jamal or somebody like that, are probably not in good shape right now. But I don't know if they're, pretty much the way the roster is. I mean, how many guys are not going on the road? So I don't think that they're really ready to make cuts.
I think there are guys that fear being cut.
I know there are guys. I know there are guys who fear being cut right now. Ever since the rumor started, everybody who's like in that lower third is probably scared to death.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, boy, that must be pretty bad.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And, well, the other part was that are they going anywhere with that? I think it was like a couple weeks ago on Raw. I can't remember when Raven was stalking Test. Is he off of Heat now? Is he?
They did an angle where Raven beat Tommy Dreamer on Heat, so now he's on Raw. You know, there's stipulations where he can come back to Raw. So he's gonna. So obviously,
nobody in WWE watches Heat, so they may be unaware of that stipulation.
Yeah. So theoretically, you know, Raven's gonna feud with Test, and Test has Stacy Keibler, and it may be, you know, like, I don't want to say a prime position, but not a terrible position. So I think Raven's getting another chance. It's about time. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did. Well, I think he probably got Pat Patterson mad, so that's about it.
Wasn't that his idea to go to Heat anyway?
Yeah, because he thought that he could, like, move the Heat ratings and it would all be attributed to him. That was not the smartest move he ever made.
You know, it might have worked if people watched Heat. They don't, so he had no hope.
Yeah.
And my other question is, what happened to Mark Lloyd? I know not that many people really care, but I'm just...
I don't know.
They replaced him with someone with more charisma.
Who, Josh Matthews?
Yeah, no, I like Josh Matthews a whole lot, but he at least brings somebody, at least knows like half the moves that are called.
He does know. Yeah, he does know stuff.
I thought he meant as the backstage interviewer.
Oh.
Well, he did. Well, I like him better as a backstage interviewer and on Velocity.
Yeah, you know that team of Michael Cole and Mark Lloyd on Velocity, that was pretty weak. Although then again, Ernest the Cat Miller. How does Ernest the Cat Miller get hired as an announcer? I mean, okay, I mean it's like they gave him that tryout on SmackDown. He did horrible, and then everyone said he did good. Then everyone in the company, except for the smart people, thought that he did good. And then the next thing I know, he's got a regular gig, and Lee's got a regular gig, and I don't get it at all.
Does that have anything to do with Bischoff being there?
Yes.
They're good friends.
Yes, but still, that's not a good enough reason for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. That's the reason.
You really think that has a lot to do with it?
It has everything to do with it. Yeah.
Why though? He has no power.
Yeah, but he went to bat. Well, it's all about who your friends are. You know that. Yeah. I mean, not 100%, but a lot. Too much.
And I got one last quick question for you. I was just reading the Ring of Honor report, just actually today. And I was wondering is there any truth to whoever wrote it said something about I don't think it was you, Dave. It was but something about that or no, it was it was the 3PW show, I think. Where Dusty Rhodes no-showed, Killings no-showed, and Too Cold Scorpio, and the rumor something was going around that XPW paid him off.
Yeah, okay, that was definitely the rumor, and I think they were spreading it at the show, but that's not the case. Dusty Rhodes had a problem with his ticket, and in trying to fix it, there was some problem with him and Jasmine St. Clair, and so he just didn't bother to come. And so that's why he wasn't there. And nothing. I don't believe it had anything to do with XPW. I mean, if he shows up on the next XPW show, then I guess it did. Killings, I think, may have. I don't know that he did because he does work for XPW. And someone told me Too Cold Scorpio was in Germany, so I don't know that to be the case, but that's what I was told.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, you're very welcome. We're going to head to a break right now because and start getting some more calls. We're going to have Mike TENAY up actually right after this break. So we'll start getting through your questions for Mike TENAY as well, and we'll talk more about the awards, and you can also dial us in at 1-800-878-PLAY, and you're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. We're going to be joined in a couple of minutes by Mike TENAY of NWA TNA and taking your phone calls as well. And if you're interested in the most up-to-date and most detailed information on pro wrestling, you can always go to www.wrestlingobserver.com, and there's information on how to get both the Wrestling Observer newsletter that I write every week and Figure 4 Weekly that Bryan writes every week, and you can read some of the most entertaining stories in Figure 4 Weekly. Actually, this week's issue had a lengthy movie review of The Smashing Machine, which is the Mark Kerr movie that we just talked about, as well as an article on Bob Sapp eating Yoshihiro Takayama.
That's right.
Yeah.
Including a photograph.
How did you do that?
It was very difficult.
Really?
5 minutes in paint, actually.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I've got these awards things in front of me. Most Outstanding Wrestler for this year.
Oh my God! I haven't even started my ballot yet. Okay. I would say, Kurt Angle.
Okay. Best box office draw.
Bob Sapp.
Okay.
Actually, that's a tough one. Because I guess you got to look at like Rock and Hogan, and do you count pay-per-view buys and everything?
Yeah, of course.
Uh-oh. See? Now I'm in trouble.
Okay.
One of those three.
Okay. We'll go to more of them in a few minutes. Feud of the year.
The Grand Marcus Jr. versus Piro.
Please.
Is there a worst feud of the year? Actually, I haven't even looked at it.
Yes, there is a worst feud of the year, and I already know, I already know who's going to win too in the worst feud of the year, and it won't be Grand Marcus and Piro Jr.
Really?
No, they won't. No way.
Wow. I don't know if people watch Galavision then, because that was really bad.
Oh, weekly. I know. Mike TENAY is on the line. We're going to jump in with. Oh, we're going to hold for 10 seconds. Okay. Who? Okay. Is that? Well, I don't know what's going on here, but is Mike TENAY here?
We can talk more about the Bariquas.
Okay, no, I have to go to a phone call somehow, so I am going to go to James in Louisville, Kentucky. James, what's going on?
How's it going, Dave?
Going really good.
How was your Christmas?
Christmas was really fun.
And Bryan, how was your Kwanzaa? Fuck your mother.
That was really good. Ed in San Antonio. Ed, what's going on?
Hey guys, I had a question for Mike TENAY, but I guess I can talk about Raw and SmackDown.
Is Mike TENAY up? Mike is up, so you can ask Mike TENAY.
Okay, Mike, I can't hear him.
I can't hear him either.
Hello.
Hi, that was him.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Okay.
Hey, how's it going, Mike? My question for you is, let's say Jerry Jarrett comes to you and says, Mike, we want to, bring in some international stars, and we want 5 guys from Mexico and 5 guys from Japan. Who do you pick, and why would you pick them to bring them in?
Wow. That's a good question right off the bat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I think, we could talk about the 5 guys from Mexico and the 5 guys from Japan, and I have some thoughts along those lines, but I think right at this point in time, I think as far as NWA TNA is concerned, I don't know that we are realistically going to have the budget to fly in that kind of talent internationally all the time. I was watching the shows from Mexico today, and, I was watching Super Crazy, who I think would be a great pickup. I was watching Juventud Guerrera again, who I think under the right circumstances could be a great addition to NWA TNA. Again, you just don't know, exactly what you're going to get when it comes to Hoovy. I think what we need to rely on is a lot of the talent that is still based here in the United States. And I think, we've proven just in the past couple of weeks by bringing Chris Daniels back. And I think if we were to look at possibly some of the top talent from the Ring of Honor promotion, maybe bring in some of the guys that have really proven themselves there. I think we're probably better off at this point in time doing that for a number of reasons, and not just the cost, but also the opportunity to get guys over. I think we probably, for the short term anyway, would have better success getting guys over that are able to do promos in English. So I think there would be a lot of upside to bringing in some top international talent, and I would love to see it happen. I would like to see us go over to Japan and get some of the established talent over there that has been working with some of our people that, when they go over. I'd love to see Kaz Hayashi come back. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love to see, some of the great veteran young talent, or great veteran talent like a Shinjiro Otani possibly come back. But I think there's a lot of possibilities for international pickups. But I think right now we're better off concentrating on the guys that we have and on the guys that are based in the United States.
Okay. And another question I want to ask you is, they've been the last few shows they've been showing a lot of guest surprises that they haven't been advertising. And what is your opinion on them not advertising them? And what's their reasoning for doing it when they could actually add more buys if they were to announce Roddy Piper or David Flair or so on?
Well, I don't think David Flair's going to add more buys, but I know what you're saying because I agree with you.
Right, and there are certain instances where I'm going to agree with you as well. I think obviously the mindset behind the promotion is that the people that come in that are surprises, you're going to get press that talks about the surprise people that come in, and they are obviously hoping that wrestling fans are going to buy every week in anticipation of seeing who that next surprise is. God, we can talk about surprises and how they affect the talent and how they affect the announcers and everything else. And, I guess my thought on that overall is I always felt that announcer is really the most effective when he's on the same wavelength as the booker. Because let's be honest about this, the announcer really should be the booker's mouthpiece. And personally, I prefer to be informed of what's going to happen, but I feel like I can ad-lib. I think to cover pretty much any situation that could come up on a live TV broadcast like you would have to do. So, I mean, got to think back to the opening night of NWA TNA where the ring breaks during the pre-taped, match that's just minutes before we're going live.
Yeah.
And, where you have to change on the fly. So I think while you certainly, have to do that as a professional broadcaster, at the same time, for myself, I prefer to know what's going to happen in advance.
If they're only telling, let's say they only told 2 people some certain surprise or whatever, and everybody gets used to that, what happens if a fan hits the ring?
Oh, hey, I'm the first to say that. I mean, when I'm in the ring introducing Jeff Jarrett and Vince Russo comes unannounced and takes the microphone away from me in the dark, how do I know that's not a fan?
You could have shot him and then...
Maybe you need to hit somebody with something. Like carry a police baton and just clonk somebody.
Unless it's the Harris twins.
Well, yeah.
And Mike, I didn't see the Roddy Piper show. What exactly were you?
There you go.
All that was going on.
Well, I didn't really hear the question.
What were you thinking while Roddy Piper was out there in that segment?
What the hell's going on here? or maybe Percy Pringle had the line better. What the hell have I gotten myself associated with? I mean, everybody has their own idea. Everybody has their own opinion on what happened, but I'm kind of the impression, and not knowing 100% for sure, but just the way that came off, and it was so uneasy with both of those guys in the ring, I'm just thinking to myself, if this was something that was planned out in advance, why isn't it coming off smoother?
Yeah. And what did they feed you in your headphone when this was going on? Anything? Or did they?
Are you kidding? That's the best part of NWA TNA. It really is. I mean, because to tell you the difference between what you get in your headsets with NWA TNA as opposed to WCW, oh God, I can't even begin to tell you the night and day difference. But it's really what I look at.
In WCW, they're going, will you quit calling that match and talk about Hulk Hogan?
It really has been one of the most fun aspects of working with Jerry Jarrett and Jeff Jarrett, and that is, very honestly, from day one, they have said to me, we want Mike TENAY to be Mike TENAY. And however you want to announce a match, however you want to, handle the broadcast, it's yours to do with as you want. And I'll be honest with you, I have had, in the 26 weeks, so little instruction about the only instruction you really get in your headsets is if they're moving segments around, maybe a pre-tape segment is being killed because of time constraints, but that's really it. So it really has been fun just being able to, just to call the matches and just to sit back. But as far as instructions to the headsets, no.
Okay, Mike. Maybe we should introduce you to everybody because...
Happy holidays, guys.
Yeah, happy holidays, Mike. You have a good Christmas?
I had a great Christmas. Really fun time. A little difficult time getting back from New Hampshire to Las Vegas, but nonetheless had a great holiday. Hope you guys did, and hope all the listeners as well. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing?
Pretty good.
That's good. Mike, Wrestler of the Year.
Wow, here we go, huh?
Yeah.
No chance to stop and think. Wrestler of the Year. Well, I guess...
Well, it may require a lot of thought, this one.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, internationally, the name that pops into my mind would be Bob Sapp.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you and Bryan both.
That's right.
So you guys have been discussing this already.
Well, no, but Bryan and I have discussed it on previous shows. We haven't discussed it tonight.
He hits me in the dark with these two.
I've been going all through them tonight.
Oh, good. I mean, Bob Sapp to me just has been, from an international standpoint, so head and shoulders above everybody else. The guy has all of a sudden become the most recognizable American-based talent in Japanese wrestling. What he's accomplished over there has just been amazing to me, especially from the standpoint of, I was working on interviews at the power plant with Bob Sapp not all that long ago, and, it's just been amazing to see the transformation that he's made. I guess, as far as someone here from the States to come up with a name, Well, I think you could go several ways with that. The guys that I've been most impressed with in terms of WWE have obviously been Eddie Guerrero. I think he's just been awesome all year. I don't know what effect really, in a positive standpoint, he would have on the overall their business bottom line. But I just think, from a pure in-ring standpoint, he has been just terrific. I think from NWA TNA, our MVP is pretty much, consensus opinion has been Jerry Lynn. From the way he's not only held together the X Division, his great experience, the great leadership that he has in the locker room. He's been great. I think
Mike, we got to head to a break, okay?
Okay, guys.
Okay, we will be back with more with Mike TENAY right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and our special guest, NWA TV announcer, NWA TNA television announcer, Mike TENAY. He's heard every Wednesday night, except for this Wednesday, on pay-per-view, starting back January the 8th, and also kind of a wrestling historian. Probably, if you want to ask questions about wrestling in the last, say, 40 years, this is probably a good show to do it because Mike, as I said before, there are some people in wrestling, within the wrestling business, who I think probably know about as much as Mike. Not too many. Maybe I can count them on one hand, but I don't think any of them are sane. So this is like the most sane. I said that when you were off the air too.
Wow, that's really a nice indictment of the business, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Well, happy holidays to everyone, then.
Brian, what'd you just say?
There's a lot for his future.
I know. Hey, do you ever sometimes, unfortunately, this happens to me when I'm watching, too often when I watch Raw, and you just scream at the TV and go, they just don't get it.
Wow. I mean, I do that at a lot of wrestling these days. I think a lot of it's on Monday night. Some of it's on other nights of the week, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you just look at the overall decline of the wrestling business and, where we're at in the year 2002, gosh, you can attribute it to so many things. And I think when you look at the overall picture, not really all of them did occur this year. But I think if you were to take one thing that to me really was a detriment to the pro wrestling business this year, it has been the consistently bad writing on Raw that has just continued to drive away that huge built-in audience that they had, where just everyone equated Monday night to their TV wrestling night. And I think just the writing has been so bad on Mondays that the one comment that I continue to hear, and I think it's just an overall perspective on the wrestling business, is if in the past I was going to miss the Monday night show, if I had something that I was going to do, I always made sure that I taped the show. And whether it's people inside the wrestling business or people outside the wrestling business, I don't hear that any longer. Almost to the point, well, I missed it, it's not that big of a deal, which you never would have heard in the past.
I think part of that is if you miss it, it is no big deal anymore.
Because you've seen everything already to this point? Is that what you think?
Not only that, but I mean, you watch Raw. I mean, what was there on Raw this past Monday night that is going to even matter next week or the week after? The arm wrestling?
Well, I think the arm wrestling would be one thing that obviously that will matter down the line. It was also, I think, the fact that it was a holiday show. That they had a lot of the things that they had that probably won't carry over. But all that being said, I still thought the last couple of weeks of Monday Night Raw have been among the best efforts that they've had in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks have been their best shows in a long time. But they went on a long streak. But that happened with WCW too. I mean, if you remember, every now and then, I mean, it wasn't like sometimes people think back and go, oh my God, all the TV was terrible, and there was a period where most of it was. But I mean, every now and then there'd be this great show.
Yeah, and even like when the NWO thing was happening, every week you could at least go, okay, are they going to add another member this week? What are they going to do this week? It all mattered back then. And now it's like, you can miss 2 shows and you really haven't missed a whole lot.
I think the overall decline of the business, though, this year, while you can talk about certain things that happened in the year 2002, you're really missing the overall scope if you don't go back further than that. I think a big part of this decline is strictly the after effects of the poor business decisions of 2001. 2001, I think you almost have to label that as the year of missed opportunities.
Absolutely.
The WWE not pulling the trigger on the biggest angle in the history of professional wrestling, on the easiest angle in the history of professional wrestling, certainly added to that decline in the audience in 2002, and maybe even most importantly, go back before then and look at the continuing erosion of that overall audience, and you can directly relate it to the sports entertainment of Vince Russo that killed WCW. Take into account the number of adults that have disappeared from the pro wrestling television audience since Vince Russo insulted their intelligence, and it's absolutely mind-boggling.
And you're working with it. No, but the thing that's really weird, and Mike, you'll understand this one, having been a fan for as long as you have, is there are people now that are wrestling fans who believe that once you get over 25 or 30, they're not going to come to arenas anyway, and they're not going to be wrestling fans, so that's not the audience we go for, when in fact half of WCW's audience was that, and wrestling when it's hot should be able to appeal across pretty much every demographic, I think.
And let's face it, I mean, it can't hurt down the line when you have that 25 or 30-year-old fan, when they start having kids, that they're going to expose the kids to the product. I mean, I don't understand why you just completely turn out those whole segments of your audience just because you're trying to get the younger demographic.
You said something really interesting right there, because there was a time when, if I had a son, I would have, I don't know that I would ever want to force him to watch wrestling, because they'd probably lock me up, but I think there probably were a lot of times in wrestling where I would, and certainly I can say this in the late 80s and the early 90s, where I would not have had a major problem letting him watch wrestling on television. Okay, you've got to explain some stuff. Now, I really like when wrestling's on, I really, I want him out of the room. Mm-hmm. I just think that, you don't know what's going to be there, you don't know, I mean, not the stupidity part of it, you just don't know because you just can't trust Vince. I think that's the best way to put it.
And let's face it, you cannot deny the numbers. 6 million people cannot be wrong.
Yeah, because they're not watching.
Think about it. From, 1999, where there were 11 million people watching Monday Night Wrestling every Monday night, and now there's, I think the number's, 4.5, 5 million?
It hasn't been 5. I think 5 million people probably watched, they watched the Scott Steiner stare down, but a lot of these shows are there's some segments that are going below 4 now.
Okay, well, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Averaging like about 4 or 5, isn't it?
Yeah, 4 or 5 would probably be pretty close to average right now, I think, yeah.
Okay, so there's still 6 million people that in the last 3 years have completely gone away from professional wrestling.
Let's go to Dan in Chicago. Dan, what's happening?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Doing really good.
It's a pleasure to talk to Mike today again. I've talked to him for about 2 times already. Now this is my 3rd time. It's a pleasure, Mike. How you doing?
What's going on?
I got a question for you. I actually got 2 questions, one for David and then one for you. The question for you, Mike, is I heard a rumor. I follow an independent league out here called MCW. I heard a rumor that Eric Priest was over at a TV taping.
Wasn't he the last TV taping?
He was, I believe, on the last TV taping that we did.
And what did you think of him?
He seemed to be okay. Now, help me out here, guys, because we have about 10 different guys on that do dark matches. Was he the underwear model?
Yes, that's him.
Yeah.
I think he looked okay to me. He didn't quite, I don't think, catch the attention of everyone like Jason Cross did a couple of weeks before. And I think that's an incredible story, and I think it just really points out that open door policy that we have, and the fact that guys can come in and they can catch the attention of the matchmakers and the front office people, and a week later they're on the TV show, and a week after that they're in line for
now they're going to be in Sunny Hockey next week on January the 8th.
How did he get over with the fans?
My recollection, Dan, is that it was not anything that completely blew away people in the audience.
And my question to you, Dave, is what's going on with because we heard going on in the internet what was going on with Hogan and Vince. Did that meeting ever take place, or what's going on?
I mean, they were in Atlanta together, and that's about it. I don't think anything else has happened. I mean, Hogan clearly wants to come back. his contract expires in just a couple of weeks, and I'm sure it's a huge money contract. He's got nowhere else to go. There is nowhere else to go, because he's not going to get that kind of money in Japan.
And what about Nash? How's his condition?
Mike would probably know better than me. I'm guessing, he's not going to be back for Royal Rumble. I think they're hopeful for WrestleMania, and I don't even know that that's a lock.
What would they do? What would they do with them? What could they do?
I think he's going to, he's certainly going to want to come back and work with Hunter. Now, whether that will be, when he comes back, and which always happens when he's around, the locker room will be very interesting.
They could do the NWO thing again with Bischoff.
Not again.
No, they can't.
I would enjoy it as a fan. For me, I would.
People, whoa, God, that would just not work now.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, let's go to Alan in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Alan, how you doing?
How you doing?
Doing really good.
I had one question for you and one for Mr. TENAY.
Okay.
For you, what is the status of Goldberg? Is he coming into the WWE?
Mike, why don't you answer that one?
Well, gosh, it sure sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's not signed, is it?
Not to my knowledge, but from every report that I hear, it's that he's obviously more receptive to speaking with them, and
they're obviously more receptive because they are giving him a deal that who would have ever thought a year ago that they would ever offer somebody this kind of a deal? Where you're talking about like just a couple of shows.
Sure, perfect situation for him. It's really exactly what he wants, and I really wonder, overall how the scope of the wrestling situation in Japan being so up in the air may contribute to Bill Goldberg wanting to come to the WWE. Even more so, depending on that situation in Japan, situation as far as wrestling in the United States or wrestling even internationally with the WWE is going to be a better deal for him just because of the problems that they're having over in the Orient.
Yeah, one thing which we have not talked about on the show that is Kazuyoshi Ishii was just he just resigned as president of K1, and he had his hands in All Japan. He had his hands in Pride, and this is the equivalent, of Vince McMahon being out of wrestling. Gone completely, and it's going to, turn that world asunder, and nobody knows how it's going to, what's happening next over there. It's really that big of a deal. And Bill Goldberg was hooked up with Ishii, so, he's got a contract there and everything. But as far as what's going to happen, everything in Japan is up in the air right now. Okay, Alan, anything else real quick? Because we got to get to a break.
I had another question. The other question was, I don't know if you can answer it quickly, but why...
Why don't you hold on? Hold on, and we'll get to you right after the break, okay? You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez, a Figure 4 Weekly. Our special guest this week, Mike TENAY, the lead announcer for NWA TNA, and we'll be talking more about that promotion in the second hour as well, and taking your phone calls. We're going to go back to Alan in Deerfield Beach, Florida, who had one more question. What's up, Alan?
Yeah, I wanted to ask him if he knows why did Larry Zbyszko leave WWF years ago, and the problems between Vince and Larry, if Larry ever discussed it with you.
Oh, like 1980-ish?
Yes.
81, whatever?
Yeah, why?
He was on top of he was the lead heel, and he was gone.
Wow, what a rivalry too, and it did great business, both as far as the Shea Stadium match, and then continuing on for.
No, that was Andre and Hogan who did that business.
Yeah, right.
That's right. Just read the book. Which, boy, is another story that we need to tackle in hour number 2.
What, the whole hour?
Why? And you could do it, but why that book has not taken off, the Hulk Hogan book.
You know what? We should talk about that in the second hour.
Most amazing thing I've ever seen. Larry's, as far as I know, I think that there probably was a question in terms of the payoff on that match.
Right.
That probably led to the long-term problems, involving Larry and WWF, and even to this day, Larry.
He's got a lawsuit out against him.
We speak with the WWE.
Yeah, he's got a lawsuit out against them for the
lawsuit, right? Trademark of Living Legend name that Chris Jericho picked up this past year.
Well, they have not talked about that in a long time. He's dropped that one.
They were very open in talking about it right on the air, sending messages to Larry for several weeks, and then all of a sudden, I'm guessing someone got in their ear and said...
it was the guy who goes, Vince, beating up a panda in England may not be the right idea this week.
Right, and talking about how many glorious years you've been in the business, and living legend, and shout-outs to Larry, may not be the smartest thing to do.
Is there tension between Bruno and Larry or anything?
Did you see, is there friction?
Yeah.
boy, there sure has been on and off through the years. You know, it's one of those things. I don't know what the situation is today.
It was a shoot. I mean, some of the friction.
No, the wrestling. None of the wrestling was a shoot, but
the friction behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, they've had friction on and off for years.
Sure.
Yeah.
For real. Thanks.
Yes, very much. Okay, yeah, we do need to. You know what? We should talk about the slew of wrestling books out there: the Lawler book, the Roddy Piper book, and the Hogan book, and the fact that they didn't really take off. But also, you guys can join us at 1-800-878-PLAY. We've got a couple of lines open. Mike will be here for the second hour, and we'll talk about that and a whole lot more right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of the Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer and Bryan Alvarez.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Let's get it on!
Okay, welcome to hour number 2 here of Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, special guest Mike TENAY, lead announcer at NWA TNA. And, you know, one thing I got to say about your broadcast and your broadcast partner, Don West. Don West, after the first month, was going hands down to win worst announcer this year, and he will not even come close to winning it now. And I have seen, you know, I think one thing that I got to say about Don West, and I know, and you deserve a lot of the credit for it, even though you probably won't want to take it, is that if you watch those guys on WWF that, you know, like Josh Matthews, years and years, you know, following wrestling, and some of the guys who they trained, that they put on the air as announcer, none of them, you know, with working full-time there, have improved anywhere to the level that Don West has improved in whatever it's been, you know, 25 weeks or whatever the number is.
Really has been amazing just how, I guess, his wrestling intuition and how intuitively he's picked things up. Yeah, I do work, you know, a lot with him every Wednesday, pretty much from 9:30 in the morning all the way through the end of the broadcast. You know, we do work together and do our best to have a great broadcast, but I've never seen anyone who really did not have any idea of any background knowledge of the wrestling business. He had a surface understanding, I guess would probably be the best way I could put it, but someone that has picked up the intricate things that you need to do as quickly as he has. So, you know, props to him as well, and that is amazing because you know, he probably was going to win that worst TV announcer hands down just a couple of months ago, and he's really turned things around. I think it's an amazing story, and I think that Don West, you know, in terms of speaking with him or having him on as a guest, would be a great guest. Just because of what he's been exposed to in such a short amount of time and what he thinks of the wrestling business already. It's
How did he get involved?
It was Russo's idea, wasn't it?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, did he watch wrestling, or how surface was his surface?
I mean, unbelievably surface. And I'm only saying that to prop him up at this point for how much he's come across and how much he's really gained in knowledge. But no, I think, you know, it's pretty simple. Here was a guy who was very recognizable, especially if you're in the wrestling business and you find yourself watching TV at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, after traveling from one city to the other, and you've got that remote control in your hand, and you're firing through there, and you're going to watch Don hype up his sports card sales, and now, you know, he does infomercials for everything from the Ding King, you know, to take dings out of your cars. You know, he does all those kinds of infomercials, and I think the gut feeling of Vince Russo was, if I can speak for Vince Russo, you know, was that here is a modern-day type of hype, maybe to put a little different spin on things than, say, a Gene Okerlund would.
Mike, can you hold on just for a second? We're going to come back with more about Don West as well as talking about the latest wrestling books. Right after this, you're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Special guest this week, Mike TENAY, lead announcer of NWA TNA. Of course, many years with World Championship Wrestling, and a fan dating back to the early 60s when he was very, very young, watching The Destroyer and people like that, and Freddie Blassie.
Yeah, thanks for putting that in there about being very young in the early 60s. Thanks for the balance. Unlike Tony Schiavone, who would point out that I'm a grandfather at every possibility.
Oh, but that was so unfair. I mean, you know. Oh, how is being a grandfather anyway?
Oh, it's fantastic. It really is much more and much better than I ever anticipated. It really is a great experience.
Yeah, yeah. Now, we were talking about Don West, and you were telling the story about how Vince Russo and a lot of wrestling people had kind of seen him do his hype job on the baseball cards and things like that, and Vince Russo decided that he would make a good wrestling announcer, and then when he first came in, it was just like, oh my God, it's like, oh my God, he knows nothing, but he's wanted to learn, and I mean, one of the things about him that you could point out is that sometimes, what do they say, the mouth of babes? I mean, sometimes he will come up with some ideas. And, the very logical stuff, I guess maybe because he's a big sports fan, right?
Right. I mean, he'll come up with logical things in the meeting. He'll come up with logical things to me after the meeting where we can drop them into the broadcast. And like you say, just because he maybe doesn't have, all those years of having his mind polluted by bad wrestling booking. That's probably the easiest way that I can put it. He still has that fresh perspective on things, and he still has the real sports perspective on things to the point where he'll turn to me and make a comment about why isn't this guy winning? This guy needs a win. It's just things like that. Armchair booking like everybody does that's involved in any aspect of the wrestling business. I mean, it's the second guess. It's such an important part of it too.
Now,
where does he live?
He lives in Nashville.
Okay.
Now you had brought up earlier, and I was thinking during the break and everything that realistically, Mick Foley got me a book deal, and probably Hulk Hogan made sure that I never get a second one.
I think it's to me it's one of the biggest stories of the year. The lack of sales for the Hulk Hogan book to me is mind-boggling.
And you know what? And before that book came out, and you and I had talked about it, I didn't see this happening at all.
Not at all. I mean, just think of the timing, the holiday season, the TV exposure, coming back and getting.
But just the Hulk Hogan.
All right, that as well. But I mean, the obvious comparison is to the Bobby Heenan book. Where Bobby Heenan had, I think, a 4 or 5 city swing through the Midwest that he did as far as publicity. He had one mention on a WWE Confidential show as compared to all of the Hulk Hogan commercials on WWE programming, let alone the appearances on the Today Show, the other national TV appearances, and then the one to me that's really scary is the incredible visibility that he has these days with the ALF commercials where you cannot turn on that television and within an hour see Hulk Hogan. And how that has not translated almost by accident to incredible book sales or decent book sales is beyond me. I just don't get that one in the least.
Well, I
almost think it's like the house show deal, where I really don't think they've done that great a job on TV plugging the book. I mean, they'll do a little commercial every now and then, but if you look at Mick Foley, that was during the peak of the wrestling boom. That book was everywhere. It was used in angles. He was hitting people with the book. They did things threw his book away and made him sad and everything like that. And here you are. It's the end of 2002. Wrestling is so cold right now and so not in. And they do a commercial every now and then. This guy's not even on TV.
Right, he's not a part of the regular TV show where Mick Foley was at the time of the book. I'll give you that. But okay, what is the reason then that the Bobby Heenan book is doing better? Is it that wrestling fans just feel that the Bobby Heenan book would maybe give them a more fun read, or maybe
I think that people. I don't think people trust Hulk Hogan.
Okay, maybe a more believable read.
Yeah. I don't know.
Could it be just because Heenan's book has been out longer?
Well, no, but I mean,
in comparison to the
like what we're talking about is like at the same Heenan's book peaked at about 182, and I think Hogan's peaked at about 250. But the point on all that is that compare the publicity that the two books had.
Yeah.
I mean it shouldn't even be in the same league. I mean, Hogan's book should be outdistancing Heenan by leaps and bounds, and it's not.
Let alone just fame factor.
Yeah. And he's running around, and he's run around everywhere. Heenan didn't run around. Like you said, he went to a few cities.
He did 5 cities. He did a morning show in Milwaukee, and Hogan's on the Today Show.
Yeah, there you go.
There's no comparison. It's maybe it's sign of the times. Maybe it's the fact that people just felt that the Heenan book would be more realism, more realistic, more behind the scenes stories that they could buy into. I don't know.
I also think that there's come to a point, about 4 or 5 years ago where everybody wanted to know more about wrestling. It was like this mysterious world. And now I think it has come full circle where people who really don't know anything actually think they know everything. Well, actually, we all do at this point. And when you watch the TV, it's not hard to think that because, okay, you know what? One of the things, when we were kids, I'm going to say when we were kids, everyone, when they start watching wrestling, one of the things, and I think this has really hurt the WWE a lot, is that in that era, where it was really hot, in the era where WCW was really hot, people were not sitting here going like, I could do this better. Mm-hmm. They were not saying that, and now they're sitting there, and not only are they thinking that they can do it better, they know they can, and they're right in most cases because, like Bryan, me and you must have read, dozens and dozens and dozens of invasion scenarios by people who don't even really know wrestling, yet they were better than what was accomplished.
Every one of them was better.
There you go. So
is it a combination of how much has been exposed in terms of the books? I mean, think of also the tough
bad part. Okay, here's another one. Okay, Bryan, I want to ask you about this too, because we've discussed Confidential on the show before, and we've discussed Tough Enough on the show before. I don't believe that what's the word I'm looking for? I don't like Confidential in that the approach that they take, I don't think they know what they're doing because they're not inside enough to be inside, and they do certain segments that kind of ruin the characters, and they say things that I think that don't need to be said on television. I don't know. What do you think about the Tough Enough? It's like I like the first season of Tough Enough. I even like the second season. This season, there was one show a couple weeks ago that was good, but I think overall this has been kind of a boring season. I don't think Tough Enough is the reason that this thing's down, though.
I don't think it's the sole reason, but I think maybe if you're just putting in a bunch of different topics and things that possibly attribute to it, I think it's something that there is a contribution that it made possibly towards the overall decline in interest in the wrestling business. I really think so.
I actually haven't even decided yet because I've talked to wrestlers who've said that they think that Tough Enough and Confidential are killing the business because it makes people not really care because they know what wrestling is. But I kind of think that people already knew what wrestling was, and I look at like the movies, and the movies are so hot right now. But
this was the biggest year in history for the movies, by the way. So all those economy reasons when people talk about why people aren't buying wrestling tickets, to me, when you hear that number, that the movie's topped $9 billion this year, that tells me that it's the product, it's not the economy that's killing the wrestling. And then we all know that anyway because we're watching it and we're not going, oh my God, I don't want to go to a show because of the economy. We're going, I don't really feel like going because they're doing nothing to motivate me to go.
It sucks. And I mean, Entertainment Tonight is not killing the movies by revealing who the actors really are and their life and everything like that. And I think if they put confidential segments on Raw and SmackDown, that would be a disaster. But I think as long as they keep it separate, I really don't think it hurts it at all.
Actually, some of the confidential segments should have been on Raw and SmackDown.
Well, I was going to say some of the character development things on the confidential show I have enjoyed.
Yeah, I mean, and some of them should be burned in hell. Let's go to Dominic in Messina, New York. Dominic, what's going on?
How you doing, guys?
Doing really good.
I just want to ask today a couple questions. Mainly, who do you feel, especially for NWA TNA, you feel could be a real breakout star in 2003? The name I've really been thinking of is, well, being on the East Coast and seeing a lot of the East Coast independents would really be, not even the whole team of Divine Storm, but mainly Quiet Storm. I just think he's a hell of an athlete. Your comment pretty much on that, or even anybody else you feel would be a good...
Low-key.
No, that's obvious. Yeah,
I think Low Key is probably one of the obvious ones, isn't it? I think Divine Storm, to me, to this point, my gut feeling is that they've underachieved with NWA TNA. I really looked for them to have a breakout match with the SATs a couple of weeks ago, and I guess overall maybe I was a little disappointed in that match. So while I'm not ready to totally bail on Divine Storm, and I think in terms of Trinity we have. Wow,
to me, she's the star of the team.
Resources there.
Okay, but I kind of feel that you're really giving, too much of her, than work, because it seems like through the match it's almost like you're for the couple weeks I saw, you're just waiting. All right, here comes the moonsault. Oh, here she goes with the nut shot. I mean, when I read about it the first week, then saw it the next 2 weeks, it was more of, it's almost the expecting factor.
But she's got to do something.
That's sort of the point of the character.
Yeah, she's got to do something in every match.
Right.
But also, who do you feel, at least for the next year coming up, who do you feel that really has been on the lower card, really feeling is going to get the big push? Who do you really...
Well, I think Jason Cross is kind of the obvious one, which we can talk about after the commercial break, but, just seems to me like it's pretty apparent that they have pretty high plans for him, just judging by the first couple of weeks, but we'll talk about that more after the break.
Okay, thanks very much, Dominic, and we'll be back with more right after this. You're listening to the Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to the show. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly. Our special guest today, Mike TENAY, lead announcer for NWA TNA. And also, if you're looking for the latest in professional wrestling news, anytime, you can always go to www.wrestlingobserver.com, and there's always headlines up there, TV reports and things like that. Plus, there's information on how to get both Figure 4 Weekly and the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. And I will tell you that Figure 4 Weekly is one of the highlights of my week. I say it every week on this show because there's a lot of news, lots and lots of news, great perspective, a lot of logical stuff. A couple of weeks ago, Bryan did a story on just logic in wrestling, and it was tremendous. And then, he wrote some good stuff about TNA. Very nice review this week of the Smashing Machine movie. Mike, you got to see that movie January 12th, and you also got to see what's it called, Reversal.
Yep.
Brian just saw Reversal this week.
Yeah, both of those movies, the reviews that I've read of them just have been amazing, and really looking forward to seeing both.
Yeah, Reversal's not a really... I mean, it's a movie about wrestling, but it's more a movie about father and son relationships. But, I mean, I've watched it with a bunch of friends, and they just love that movie. Especially if you're a sports fan and you're a parent, it's just a great movie to see. And the wrestling... The other thing in that movie, Brian, is the wrestling in that movie is tremendous.
Oh, yeah. I was reading I was surprised because the star of the film, the coach, is based on his life.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Yep, there's special commentary on there where he's talking about where they got everybody and how they used real amateur wrestlers to play the roles.
Well, they had to be, because you watch those wrestling sequences, you can't have actors wrestle that good.
Yeah, and they go, we brought in Hollywood actors and had them try out, and the amateur wrestlers were actually better, and it was good. Yes.
We were talking about Jason Cross, and also, I was thinking during the break, who you should actually recommend to these guys at NWA TNA is Tom Howard, because you're lacking in heavyweights. He's a very good worker and unique gimmick.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I brought up Tom Howard's name to Jeff Jarrett at the last show before we had our break, and just pretty much asking Jeff if he had a chance to see Tom Howard over in Japan when Jeff was there, and what he thought of him, because Tom Howard is one of those guys that I've been watching for years. I mean, dating back to when he first broke in Southern California and went.
Oh, did you do this when he was a surfer, right?
Yeah, went to Mexico. I saw him wrestle independently in Southern California. I saw him wrestle the lucha style in Mexico, and never really thought all that much of him. But I know that he's made incredible strides in the last couple of years, and certainly is positioned high with the promotion in Japan. It was a name that I did mention to Jeff Jarrett, following his last trip to Japan.
Do you know who would get over? Brian and I were talking about this. Was Matt Kafari, but I mean, I think the price range. I mean, only as a clueless gimmick, but I think it would absolutely work.
Matt Kafari, even with his look.
I think because of his look. Because of his look. It's so out there.
Big, fat, just so disgustingly gross. How do you even work or move?
Didn't we do that with Bastion Booger already?
Yeah, but this guy's a great athlete. And Bastion Booger was a different kind of disgusting. I mean, Bastion Booger was all around disgusting. This guy just has a disgusting body.
That would be part of the gimmick, his weight.
Yeah, kind of like, Buddy Rose.
Yeah, if he lost that weight, he'd just be another dude.
Yeah, another boring dude, too. Let's go to Charles in Little Rock, Arkansas. Charles, what's going on?
How are you doing, Dave?
Doing really good.
Good. I had a question for you. I read something this weekend, and I'm not sure that this was in the Torch or where it was. I think it was in the Torch, that the current plan for the Royal Rumble is for Chris Jericho to win by fluke and drop a number one contenders match to Shawn Michaels at No Way Out. and then do Triple H versus Shawn again at WrestleMania?
I have not heard that. I
don't think that was the Torch.
It wasn't the Torch because I read the Torch, and I know it wasn't the Observer because I write the Observer. And but I haven't heard that, and it doesn't. I don't know what they're doing, but that doesn't sound like where they're going based on what I have heard.
Because the first thought I had when I heard that is, I think that the bookers just sit up at night and try to find ways to just make Chris Jericho look as stupid as they possibly can. Because I don't know, I think would you agree that he's probably the most misused guy in the company for the past 3 years? I mean, he could have been a breakout star.
There's so many. It's the first one that comes to my mind too, but because he really did have the chance to be really one of the top guys, but. I look up and down that roster, and I see, with the exception of Lesnar, almost everyone there, and, maybe Helmsley because of who he is, everyone there has pretty much been misused, I think.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess I think of him because I think about how over he was in 2000 and how he was ready at that time, and then he was ready again.
He was ready, but those people whisper in people's ears, and they believed it. Sometimes I get so frustrated. You know what? Bryan and I talk about this all the time. I get so frustrated when people perpetuate stupidity in wrestling, and you can just sit here and all you got to do is watch it and go, no, Chris Jericho is not a terrible worker. You know what I mean? But people perpetuate it because, one person says it, and then it's like, I must be, I got to be cool, and I got to figure that out for myself, that he must be terrible because, Hunter says he's terrible. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, God.
Do you think that Vince honestly has a bad opinion of him, or do you just think that he just...
Vince is a big guy, and when he walks and he sees Chris Jericho, who's probably 5'9", he thinks,
I could take this guy.
Yeah, and Eric Bischoff is the same way, and it's hurt Chris Jericho. And when he walks in the room and he sees, Nathan Jones, you know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God, there's money here, and it's like sight unseen, you know what I mean? And that's part of the problem.
Shame it has to be that way, but I guess that's just how wrestling is. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay, you're very welcome. Let's go to Greg in Chicago. Greg, what's going on?
Yeah, I got a question about Ric Flair, but if I could talk about a couple of the books first. Your review of Lawler's book this past week in The Observer has certainly made me want to check that out.
Yeah, it's a very unique book. It changed courses twice in that book. The first half of the book, I was just enjoying it tremendously. Then it was kind of like, it was okay, and then at the end it just took a turn that I just couldn't imagine. It was fascinating, that's for sure.
And also when I read the Hogan book, the only way I could describe it to my friends is that it basically was like a Hogan match where he does everything to make himself look good at everybody else's expense.
Yeah, but he doesn't lie in his matches.
No, but cheats all of us.
Yeah.
My question about Flair for Mike would be, what is it about him that has made the people in power, whether it be Bischoff or Hogan or Nash or even now in the WWF, why is it that they never want to use him to his best usage?
Wow. I would just say it's a lack of understanding on their part as opposed to something that Rick has internally done.
Rick gets along with everyone.
Sure. I mean, I don't see how that would, really affect how they really use him. I just think it's that they dropped the ball.
But you know what the thing on Ric Flair is though, is that Ric Flair has a very unique position in this business, in that he's been around forever, and there's so many people who remember him in such a fond way, and you can't kill him, and the people in power, I don't think that they really understand that because they weren't fans at that point, and then at other times, it's like, I think Eric thought because Rick was never part of the WWF in the 80s that Rick really wasn't that big, yet in his company Rick was bigger than the guys who were in the WWF in the 80s, but I don't think he recognized it. I don't know, what do you think, Mike?
Well, you might be right. If you don't have that point of reference, if you weren't around, then maybe you don't have that understanding and you don't have that feeling on where his place is and where his career is and how important it is to the overall history of the business. So maybe that's part of it too, that the people that are coming up with the ideas for him just really don't know.
I'm just convinced that nobody in WWE ever actually watched anything other than what they filmed.
Oh, you mean as far as other promotions?
Anything, other promotions?
Oh, I don't think. I know Heyman did. I know Michael Hayes did because he was in other promotions. But I know basically what you're saying. Yeah, I sense the same thing.
I heard the story the other day. Somebody went up and suggested, I think, to Shane McMahon that they should do War Games. And Shane just goes, "Can you get me a tape of it?" Even though they own the library and everything. And to me, right there, that was like, okay, well, now I know why the invasion died. One of many reasons.
Well, we know why the invasion died. We've gone through that too many times. Greg, anything else?
Dave, the next time you have Piper on, you need to supply like a roadmap for all the listeners to follow his train of thought.
Oh, God.
He's all over the place.
Yeah.
Times you've had him on.
I know. Well, I don't know. I have so much fondness for Roddy Piper because, you know, like in the I guess it would have been in the 70s and everything, growing up watching, you know, Los Angeles wrestling on Wednesday nights, and that was horrible wrestling. You know, when people talk about the bad angles of today, I actually wrote something somewhere about this. Some of the angles, and Mike, you actually lived in Southern California while this was going on. I mean, like what I liked about the Piper book, like the hypnotism and all that. I mean, that was some of the goofiest stuff I can ever remember.
Drove me away from being a fan, believe it or not, and that's saying something, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, beginning in the early 60s, I probably, you know, saw almost every television program and went to so many live events in Los Angeles, but it got to the point where they had the Monster.
The Monster, when I took some friends when I was in college and we went to see the Monster, and it was like, that was a bad night for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one to defend.
Better or worse than the AAA Monster?
It's the same, except I don't know what they say on AAA because it's in Spanish, but the Monster, they tried to pass off that this guy was built in a laboratory. It was not a man in a monster costume. It was the Monster built by Pete Collins in the laboratory. And we're going to come back. I'm going to tell a story. Mike probably knows the story about Andre the Giant and the Monster. It's actually one of my favorite stories. Right when we get back, you're listening to the Wrestling Observer live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Okay, welcome back to Wrestling Observer Live. I'm Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, special guest Mike TENAY. And before I get to the Andre the Giant Monster story, I'm going to ask you two guys a question. Next year, do you think it will be better, worse, or the same?
Worse.
You think it'll be worse?
I'm very worried about SmackDown.
Well, you know, I mean, that's in the hands of TV programmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, it's just so difficult to use the crystal ball on that one, you know, and just not knowing. I mean, you see how the mindset of the WWE has changed just in the last month or so as far as their Raw programming goes. So I think it's so tough to predict when, you know, they can change the whole direction of the TV show from week to week.
I think that the next 3 months leading to WrestleMania will be good because, you know, I see the people who are coming back, and, you know, there's got to be some short-term excitement with Austin, with Rock. You know, if Bill Goldberg comes in, I think that will be good. I think that after WrestleMania, I don't know.
Sure, it all depends on how they handle it and how they put all those elements together, whether they get the most bang for their buck. And I think the same kind of applies to NWA TNA. And let's face it, you know, overall, I think the whole wrestling business it relates to the perception of what the TV executives think, and how long is it going to be before television executives once again think that wrestling has a chance to draw numbers, or that they're willing to take a chance on wrestling. I think there's just so many intangibles involved that it makes it so difficult to predict when that's going to happen.
Okay, one of the problems with wrestling, this is something that, you know, you have been very much in the middle of, okay, is there's a certain understanding of wrestling fans that you have, and that people in wrestling that have been around for years and years have. On the outside, people who are not wrestling fans but may have watched it a couple of times, never watched it closely, and are in these power positions, whether they are head of companies, whether it be Panda Energy or the head of UPN or the head of TNN, they have an idea of what professional wrestling is, and it is more of a vaudeville show in their mind than a fake sport. And because of that, to please them or what they think or what they want to hear of a direction, you know what I mean? You're trying to please people that aren't the fans, yet if you don't please them, they'll yank you and you're dead. It's a real, you know, that's the one thing that I've seen and I think is going to be the key story for this year coming up.
Yeah, it makes for a real catch-22, doesn't it, when you just don't know which you're coming up with a product that's to please the people that are the financial backers and what their perception of professional wrestling is, as opposed to, what the best product is to put out there. But let's face it, again, the biggest thing is getting it in the minds of the people that don't really understand professional wrestling, which are all those TV executives, and the perception that wrestling is cool again, or who is going to be the first television executive that makes that decision. Sure, it's easy once Survivor breaks through to say, now we're going to program all reality TV programming, but it's that guy that makes that first decision that is the one that sticks his neck out the most, and who knows how long it's going to be until that person comes along.
Mike, because you and I have been at NATPE conventions in the past. Remember the one year we went and everybody wanted to be 90210, and then one year we went and everybody wanted to be the afternoon talk shows?
And it's always the year after.
And the year after it hits, and all of those new shows, they never last, or almost never. The copycat versions.
Oh yeah, I mean just think of it. I mean from the Survivor, how that's taken off, and all the shows that have come after that, and you're already seeing an incredible erosion in terms of the numbers on all those reality programs now. Like you say, just another year or two later.
Yeah.
Another thing is, even when the shows are on the air, the executives have an idea of who wrestling fans are as well.
And that's also not good.
Yeah, you got great, Raw does a 5-0 and tennis does a 1-0. And it's going to be preempted, just like it was years ago.
Well, that's because that's advertisers.
Yep.
But here's I'll tell you what, and a lot of people, this is one of the things, and I don't know exactly where UPN is, and I don't think that they've even made the decision yet, knowing the way TV works, but certainly what we do know is that a year ago, UPN, went to WWE, and they wanted to cut SmackDown to 90 minutes. And the reason was they wanted to book a television show to follow SmackDown that would appeal to that young male demographic, so they could think about this, they could keep the SmackDown audience, okay? Or let's say they could keep 70% of the SmackDown audience, they'd get a lower-rated show, but wrestling would provide a good lead-in. If they could keep that, with that same audience that they're trying to keep, if it was not wrestling and if it was some sort of a sitcom, they could charge higher ad rates with less of the wrestling audience, with the same people, because it's not wrestling.
Yeah.
And that's actually the decision-making process that may cut SmackDown back in time next season, if that does happen.
If you look at ratings for shows that follow wrestling shows, has any show ever really benefited that much from having wrestling go before it?
The only ones that I could think of were when Sunday Night Heat was hot, and then they put wrestlers on that beach.
The
Pacific Blue, when Hunter was on and China was on, and some of them.
But it's still wrestlers.
Yeah, and wrestling was hot, and wrestlers on TV were hot. That did, but as a general rule, no.
I just don't see, I don't see my friends who watch wrestling staying and watching the same channel just because there's another show on that's, it's not, people watch wrestling to watch wrestling.
That's, and
why they would stick around and watch something else, even if it is in their demographic.
Yeah. And you're right about that, and TV programmers have been pulling their hair out ever since the demise of roller derby, trying to figure out what to follow wrestling with and not lose all your audience. But real quick before we go back to the phones, because we talked about the Andre the Giant Monster story. This is late 70s, I'm guessing, or early 80s. The Los Angeles promotion, they came up with this gimmick of the monster who was built in a laboratory by this heel manager by the name of Pete Collins. And, his gimmick was, he was not a mask guy. He was supposed to be, a monster. He would go in the ring. He'd wear these big lifts, so he looked to be like, 6'5", 6'6". He was really, Tony Hernandez, who was nowhere near that tall. And would walk around like Frankenstein or something like that, or Herman Munster. And, no-sell all the spots of everybody, basically, and just, pulverize them with his powers, right? So anyway, Andre came in, and they built up, Andre the Giant against the Monster, which actually was made sense, given, except that they had to do a match. And Andre was in a really foul mood. I think that he had drank so much and didn't want to be there, so he went in the ring drunk, and whatever happened, I don't know what Tony Hernandez did, but Andre was not happy, and he kept trying to unmask him. And, the guy, he couldn't be unmasked because, he wasn't supposed to be a guy wearing a mask. So he's fighting, to keep his mask on. And, when Andre the Giant is fighting a normal man trying to pull his mask off, it's not very pleasant. And I just remember that Tony Hernandez ended up with 3 broken ribs out of that night.
I can only imagine how much Andre must have drank to have drank too much.
I know, when you hear the stories about what he would drink on a normal day and get into the ring just like it is a normal day. Let's go to Jim in Edison, New Jersey. Jim, what's going on?
How you doing, guys?
Doing really good.
I had a couple of questions for you. What do you think the buy rate would be between Rock and Goldberg for WrestleMania?
At WrestleMania, I think that it
1.7.
1.7. That's 850,000 buys. That was actually my number was about 850. So yeah, I would agree.
Who do you think would do the job in that match?
My guess is that they would do 2 matches and they would split. I think it's the only way to do it.
I just love reading all of Goldberg's interviews where he talks about he'd handle Hunter. He doesn't lay down for anybody.
That's not a good one.
Oh, boy. I would love to be there when they're negotiating.
You know what?
Yes, you know what? I would, too.
You know how to bring him in all?
I think it's pretty easy how you bring him in. He just shows up and, you set up the match kind of like...
Kind of like the Invasion.
No. But yeah, that's the idea.
You think him and Austin going to get it on, too, or...?
I think it would be a great idea. I think it would be they should do it. I don't know that it'll happen, but if I was putting it together, I would have 1 match with Rock and 1 match with Austin. If he was going to do 2 matches, I would not have 2 matches with the same guy, or maybe 1 match with Rock and 1 match with Brock Lesnar. Something along those lines. That's how I would do it.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think Bronco.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to we're going to go to Ken in Tacoma. Ken, what's going on?
Dave, it's Ken Hamlin. How are you?
Hey, Ken Hamlin, what's happening?
Hey, hi, Brian.
Hey, Ken.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Hey, Mike. Just a couple of quick things. Number one, Dave, thanks for having Roddy on.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Oh, my God, that was so great. And I'm in the last chapter of the book. And if you could ever get him to stay on a straight path one night and talk about just Portland, since you and I kind of started out at the same time in this thing, I'd love to have him just sit there and talk about Portland, because I thought some of the Portland stuff in his book was just the funniest things. The bathroom thing with Elton down in the Grand Theater in Salem and so forth. And
the El Nolan stories and the Killer Brooks stories were quite great stories.
I was on a plane. I was down in your neck of the woods over Christmas, and I read it on the plane down and on the plane back, and I'm thoroughly laughing out loud, and all these people are looking at me on the plane like I'm some sort of psycho idiot because I'm reading the cigar story. And that just was great. But Mike, thanks for coming on. It's nice to hear you. I don't get a chance to see TNA because my work schedule doesn't permit it, but I really wanted to ask you about Bobby Heenan. What was it like working with him? Roddy's book said he was like the biggest genius that he had ever met when it came to working a match and working on behind the mic and so forth. Can you give me some opinions on working with Bobby?
Sure. I mean, working with him, living with him. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. My time spent with WCW, I thought the best perk of the job that I had was traveling with Bobby Heenan and working with him. Just the fact that you're dealing with the wittiest guy ever in professional wrestling, the funniest man in wrestling, really makes the long trips and the traveling that can be a grind. It makes it the opposite, and you look forward to it. As far as working with him, the incredible wit, coming up with things off the cuff, and Bobby at his best, and when he really had his mind into what he was doing. I don't think anyone better in terms of being a heel manager. I don't think anyone really better in terms of being a great bump taker or a heel announcer. I don't think at all.
Was he a great ribber?
No question.
No question. Did he ever? How many times did he get you? More than you could count?
The opposite, actually. It would be Heenan and I pulling the rib on somebody else, to be honest with you.
Oh, that would be great. Dave, thanks a lot for taking the call, and Brian, I'll see you on the 31st, if not before.
Yeah, I'll see you there.
All right.
All right, we're going to go ahead to our final break, and we'll be back right after this. You're listening to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. So our final segment of the show here on Wrestling Observer Live, Dave Meltzer, editor of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter, with Bryan Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and Mike TENAY, lead announcer of NWA TNA. And Brian, real quick, tell Mike what the odds were for the Sap Takayama match, because Mike knows a lot more about odds than I do, and he'll probably be able to explain what those numbers mean.
Minus 800.
Sap was the favorite, minus 800?
Yeah.
Well, pretty simple. You have to put up $800 to win 100. So for every $800 that you bet, when Sap wins the fight, they give you back 900, so you make $100 profit.
Yeah, so that's
and
what
then usually the other side, depending on the book, I mean, Takayama would have been a plus number of like, what, 500 or 400?
500.
Plus 500, which simply means that you put $100 on Takayama, and you get 500 for your 100, so you get a total return of $600 for Takayama for a $100 bet.
Well, that's not a bet I'm taking. Let's go to Carlos in West Haven, Connecticut. Carlos, what's going on?
How's it going, Dave?
Going really good.
About Hulk Hogan's book.
Yes.
Yeah, I read it and it was pretty bad. And I just want to know, did you enjoy watching Hulk Hogan wrestle at all, or as a performer or as a worker?
When he was in the AWA and it was like something really new and fresh, you know, I mean, because it was I mean, you could tell that it was going to be. I mean, I don't want to say I knew he was going to be as big as he got, but I knew he was going to be the biggest star in wrestling, hands down. I mean, from very early on. And I enjoyed that. I probably enjoyed some of his WWF stuff. I can't say I enjoyed a lot of his stuff. I did like a lot of the Hogan-Ric Flair matches. In fact, most of them. You know, even if I didn't always like the finishes. I mean, I thought, you know, he had good chemistry with Flair. You know, the WrestleMania match with Randy Savage and some of the house show matches he had with Randy Savage I liked a lot. But, you know, I probably disliked more than I liked.
Did you like when he ripped his shirt and he flexed?
You know, it was part of his routine. I didn't dislike it or anything like that. That was fine. You know, it's I mean, it's what he should have done. It's, you know, it's part of the show. That's what people come to see.
His book's not going to be considered a success, right?
No. None of the books that are out right now. I mean, the Lawler book doesn't look like it. The Piper book doesn't look like it. No, it's
you know, Flair book would be good.
I don't think it would do that well, just because if the Hogan book didn't do well, I didn't think a Flair book would do well. I think if Flair was completely divorced from wrestling and out of it, and wanted to tell the truth, I think his book would be phenomenal. But as long as Flair's in wrestling, I think that there's too much that he'll leave on the table, so to speak.
All right, thanks a lot, Dave.
Okay, very welcome, Carlos. Michael, thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys. That was sure a quick 90 minutes.
Very quick. Oh, it's always quick with you. And Bryan, I want to thank you again. And, of course, Bryan will be back here next Sunday, and we'll join everybody else next Sunday here on Wrestling Observer Live. And don't forget, tomorrow night is the Raw Special Best of the Year. NWA TNA starts back on January the 8th, and with Amazing Red and all the other stars of NWA TNA, Jerry Lynn and Jason Cross against Sonny Siaki is the only matches I know of. Any other matches on the show?
That's the only one that I know at this point.
Okay, so we'll be seeing Mike Tenay then, and we'll see all of you next Sunday. You listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.